Unshelling Medicine Podcast. Healthcare in the language we understand.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode. Today, I have Sharon Rolph with me. So, hi, Sharon.
Hello.
So, today is going to be a very interesting and exciting conversation. It's going to be a conversation about reinventing yourself. It's going to be a conversation about, going for it, right? So, Sharon has something on a wall that caught my attention, and we are going to start off this episode with her reading that out to everybody listening. And yeah, you two will be excited or, interested in having this conversation after she reads that. So Sharon, welcome to the show. And yeah, can you share with our audience what you have on your wall that caught my attention?
I love to. So let's set the stage for, I'm kind of weird in that I have loved to collect stories of people who have had near-death experiences. And I now have 3 friends that live to tell about it. I've looked at the messages they come back with are often kind of similar. And so I have made up a list of what are the similar messages that they bring back to us. So it says, you are infinitely worthy. You are infinitely precious. You have always been enough. You will always be enough. There's not a place you don't belong. You are lovable. You are loved. And you are love. So I imagine, having heard all the stories that I've collected, as standing in heaven and imagining all the ways that they describe the fragrance and the colors and the beauty and the flowers sing in heaven. And I have said, okay, if all of that permeated my body and my cell, I feel it in every cell of my being, how would it make a difference back here? So I think we're going to talk about that today.
Good. So you read that, and as positive as all of what that messaging carries, one has to really, just like you said, intrinsically believe and trust that those statements are true. How easy is it for the everyday person to, despite what they're experiencing in life or in their immediate environment, understand or believe that they're lovable and loved and they belong?
Well, that's a huge question. And let me encourage you first to swear to yourself, promise yourself, you're not going to live your life based on fear. That is a huge turnaround. Everything in media and a lot of stuff in social media are trying to fill you with fear. When you go to your doctor's office, ask him about this med and all that other stuff. Excuse me, I have a self-healing body. And as I love myself more, and as I root out all that fear-based stuff, well, just love yourself. You have to love yourself before you can love your neighbor. Do you realize that? So these are messages. Yeah. So, if you abide in me and my word abide in you, you will ask. Well, so abiding, I think that says God abides in me. And therefore, God is love. And if God abides in me, then I am also love. Let's show the world that love.
So how does this translate for a person who has lived their life in their own respect, right? There's that saying that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? What do you say to that when somebody's like, oh, it's always been this way, I'm stuck in my way, the world hasn't changed one bit since I've been alive, or this is, the way things just should be, right? Do you think that that mindset hinders growth? Because you're all about growth, right? You're all about reinventing yourself and doing something that it can be scary, but also reinvigorating in a sense. So what would you say to people who are maybe around your age, range, who are pretty much stuck in their mindset of, this is the way things should be, and, not being flexible, I should say. That's the word. Not really being flexible in a way of change or accommodating where the world is going.
Well, I, in fact, hosted a group on Wednesday this week of a guy who is a certified entrainment expert, I guess it was. And I love talking about our topic that day was quantum mindfulness. Whoa, he blew me away with his approach to quantum mindfulness. Now, my understanding of quantum is that it's all whatever is your problem, it's already been solved somewhere in the ages, now or in the future. But the flexibility is how he described. He started out by saying truth isn't truth and a lie isn't a lie and whatever. And what are you talking about? But I think over the last 4 or 5 years, I've realized that what I'm aware of and what I'm willing to accept and believe might be different than you because I've grown at a different level. My truth is different than yours because of what I can understand. And God realizes that. So there's a certain amount of agreeing with this preposterous idea and making us comfortable with it. But, well, okay, so what who's taught you that? Your parents did probably. Maybe some of your teachers, you'll never amount to anything, or, all kinds of name calling. I was called a blue elephant when I was a teenager.
What is that?
I grew up on a farm, and so we were always wearing blue jeans, and I had been big for my size since I was in first grade. So my jeans just, I grew up faster, I guess, bigger than I was the same size as my brother, but on boys it doesn't matter. Girls is a little bit different, but we're all unique. And to accept that you are uniquely beautiful, precious, and lovable is a hard lesson to understand when you've been having all these critical voices going through your head besides your parents and your school teachers and whatever. I often look at people that are walking down the street, on the sidewalk while I'm sitting waiting for a light to change. And, how they walk along looking at the concrete or the sidewalk, or how slow they walk and they're not standing up straight. I feel sorry for them because they are stuck in what probably somebody else told them they were. It might be somebody you admire, and well, if they know better than me, then yeah, it must be true. No, the scripture talks about God is love. And so I've been trying, even as I'm going to sleep or waking up every day, trying to feel that sense of love. When people talk about having visited heaven, they don't even have to see God before they feel an intense level of love. And that's got to change yourself in being overwhelmed with such amazing acceptance. And to love myself on that degree, I'm still working on it. It's a good thing to work on because I want to be a picture of that how he perceives me the best I can. So a big part of that is saying those people don't know what they're talking about. Your parents and school teachers. And, one of the principles I've started using for a lot of people is they're doing the best they know how. They're passing on what they think is good wisdom, good truth for them, as maybe you did something that was kind of stupid or outrageous or whatever. But when we say they're doing the best they know how, it shuts up all that critical noise in your head. And of course, there are good and evil that does want to influence what you're thinking. Well, you got to start doing your own thinking. What do you say about yourself? And a book that may be pretty outrageous to you, but it has a lot about doing your own thinking, is a book called Outwitting the Devil. And it's one of those books it's hard to decide whether it really is true or not, but it's worth checking out because the truth in that book is amazing. They talk about there's 7, I think, major fears in the world. The fear of getting sick, the fear of not being loved, the fear of pretty, everybody would relate to these 7 fears. And to talk to yourself about how much God loves you negates all those fears. So to be beautifully loved, you have to ponder how much does God love you. And on YouTube, there's quite a few near-death experience stories of people that came back so changed. And yes, sometimes it takes them 20 years to tell us the story, but to change from a miraculous event like that and choose to believe that there's truth in it for you too is pretty ideal.
So you mentioned the book, How to Outsmart the Devil, and our community and environment and the people that we associate with can, have devilish tendencies. Even our actions can have devilish consequences and tendencies, right? So do you think it's a good idea for somebody to have like a self-inventory of self-sabotaging behavior that they may be engaging in?
My secret sauce, my best course that I've created from my own experience, having been in the first thing they taught us in coaching school was how to write our essence statement. There's a lot of people using essence statement anymore lately, and so I've renamed it. You used the word earlier, intrinsic motivation. I've called it inner spark or spark. And when I was at the end of having wrote our essence statement, they had us standing in a circle reading our statement to each other. And I kind of noticed some of the people were choking up a little bit. What's that about, And as it came my turn, nobody had ever asked me to define my soul before. That's what it felt like. And yeah, I choked up a little bit too. It was such a precious moment. So we took the things we love to do, we took our values, we took our guiding principles and our hopes, dreams and desires, and some of our habits. Are our habits good or bad, and are they improving us? But they help us think about our future. What do we want in our future? And here's what my essence or spark sounds like, and I kind of related. It kind of defines our GPS or even our DNA. In fact, Outwitting the Devil talks about how what we believe changes our DNA, and he kind of refers to it as the other self, the spiritual self, instead of the daily run-of-the-mill self. I am precious jewel of wisdom. I am colorful collaborator, motivator, and learner. I'm tranquil, authentic, and pure inspirer. I light fires. I'm here to light your fire.
It sounds very much like an affirmation. And this is why affirmations are very important, because when you speak things, you speak into existence. And when you speak things, you start believing them, right? As opposed to, hearing somebody say it or maybe reading off whatever it is. As a coach, what do you think has been the most challenging thing that you've come across? Is it people getting in their own way, or people letting go of the burden of other people's opinion of themselves?
Let's see. That's quite a stretch of question. There's so much that we let other people define us. I'm looking for you to tell me who I am. Like you hold up a mirror and the mirror reflects back to you. Well, people reflect back to you who they think you are. They may not have the full story. Like I did a podcast yesterday that was none other than I'd ever had before. I was vulnerable in a very unusual way because they were talking, the lady of the host was a marriage and dating coach. Well, I've never married. I've never had kids. There's no rings on my fingers. And for her to be talking about dating and teasing me a little bit and in a fun way, kind of saying, you need help. So I told her about my wedding dress I have in the closet here that I've had for 35 years or so. So we had a lot of fun with it. But so getting back to your question, the guy that I kind of alluded to in talking yesterday was a friend I've known since high school. And he is in Baltimore, clear across the other side of the country. And he had never known the ugly truth that was in our family. Mm. I wanted to be invisible at a very young age. Mm. I told somebody back probably 15, 20 years ago, it's got to be 30 years ago, I guess. She was a lady that kind of gave people a word of wisdom or knowledge. Knowledge would be the way. And she asked some kind of question like, what was my earliest memory? And I had 2 or 3 times where I got this sense that I was as stiff as a board shaking. And she said that did happen. I was in my crib and I was scared stiff. And my dad was leaning around the wall and saying, Mom, Sharon needs you. Well, there had been sexual abuse in our home for years. And it must have started with me being in a crib, for crying out loud. And I thought, well, in order to be safe, this is the story you don't know about people. In order to be safe, I need to double down, focus, be obedient, get good grades, and maybe I'll be safe. Well, 30 years later, when I had the strength enough to consider what might have happened that I didn't know about, one of my younger sisters, the day she got married, she started to tell me, you don't know all there is to know about our family secret. And her husband stopped her. That's enough. Don't need to say anymore. And it took me 15 years more to realize that when I was strong enough to handle it, oh yeah, I remember reading in her diary that she thought she might be pregnant. And they, my parents apparently recognized that I was sensitive growing up, and they were protecting me. So I don't blame them at all for keeping that secret. But I did need to wait until I was ready to handle it. And so how I recovered from that was by I'd always been a lifelong learner, even at preschool. Mom had me helping my older brother and sister with their flashcards, the 3 + 2 = 5 cards. And by the time I started first grade, I knew my sister's cards almost better than she did. But the good thing that happened is I got to skip second grade.
Yeah.
I was so happy I wasn't in that class behind me. I was more mature. But so lifelong learning and, having my nose in a book all the time, it didn't hurt. There was no trauma, of reading books and learning. I love learning. In fact, okay, I also made these little art blocks. And
Mm,
this is one that came from a line in The Lion King. Have
mm,
you forgotten who you are?
mm,
That could be something that we relate to the messages, that God is saying, have you forgotten I love you? So, but as I make these little art blocks, I love color. See, what do
mm,
you love about yourself? I mean, color is here. I love to a lot of books that I read. I find nuggets of wisdom, and I like to put words of wisdom on my blocks, and then the color that I so appreciate. So that's what my uniqueness, what I have to share with the world. What do you have to share with the world? A song, strong debater, or a trumpet player that can wow the crowd, with your talent. But since it's sometimes an invisible asset, we don't have a billboard saying, here's how I'm unique and what I'm here to do. That's the mystery. I'm beginning to realize that's a mystery that we need to find out about ourselves. And I tell you, when I'm living from my spark, it feels a lot like heaven on earth. It's fulfilling. There's a lot of joy in that alignment with what you were born with. And it helps, I think, heal our world. And our spirit loves to live from that sense of destiny, I think, and purpose. You live longer, you're healthier, and it's a meaningful fulfillment.
great. So when we talk about spark, right? Some people find that spark early in life. Some people find it later in life. And even with finding that spark, there's a lot of battle with, surrounding energies in a sense, people that are around you who may have this commitment to stick to the ideation of you, regardless of how hard you are working to fan the flames of that spark to be yourself. That can be very discouraging. What can a person do if they feel they don't have like a supportive community to fan the flames of this spark so they can blossom in their happiness, they can blossom in knowing who they are?
Yeah. Oh, so I did write a book, Fresh Courage in Retirement, Finding Purpose, Essence, and Fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave my two younger sisters a copy for Christmas a year or two ago. Nothing. They have not said the first word about it. Talk about not feeling supported. So I've had to go it alone. I decide what stops me. And another big principle, if whether you're dirt poor or a billionaire, you don't know whether they have a sense of purpose or happiness or living their destiny. A lot of rich people are not happy.
Mm.
And take a look at the people around you that get sick, get cancer, get diabetes. I have not had any of those. I decide that my body is a self-healing body, but they may very likely be hiding a trauma like I did.
Right.
I was 245 pounds when I retired.
Wow.
And that trauma, so they tell us about research, is that that's stuck in our body. Yeah, it's pretty hard to love yourself when you're stuffing potato chips in your mouth, when you're drinking soda pop and all this stuff that's full of chemistry. You do feel better when you eat your fruit and vegetables. But and besides, I didn't want people to, kind of flirt with me or have come-ons that I'd have to shoo away. So, hey, being heavier, I didn't have to deal with that because I didn't want to be. Hey, if you really knew me, you wouldn't love me anyway. How many times have you said that?
Yeah.
So I've been still working on loving myself even the last couple of years, because can you look at yourself in the mirror and your eyes and say, I love you? You're doing the best you know how? That's a really nice feeling. And it starts helping you not hear those critical voices that try to tell you otherwise.
Mm.
It's a good feeling. Yeah.
It is. And I think people are learning that a lot of us don't know how to love ourselves. You said in the beginning, in order for you to love your neighbor, you have to love yourself. And I think people have gotten used to being very loose at the mouth without considering somebody else's feeling. They've learned to be callous with the way that they deal with things and people, even when genuine concerns are present. So, and you have to be able to recognize when these things present. If you are presenting something to a loved one, family members, friends, acquaintances who either disregard your feelings or tell you to get over it, when something is genuinely a thing of concern to you, recognize that you don't have to stay in that environment, right? You have to learn to love yourself, even if it means to remove yourself. This is something that a lot of people are doing recently in order to maintain their happiness and stable mental health status as much as possible, is to go no contact with certain people who are not supportive of either their journey or them as a people or person. Is that something that you think is highly necessary when it comes to really not putting yourself in a stressful situation that would cause all these deadly chronic diseases, and for you to, stay in your spark and flourish in your spark?
Flourish. I love that word, flourish. One of the gifts God gave us is a gift of choice. You can believe that negative, fearful stuff, the stuff that pulls you down, that lowers your vibration, that confuses you, or you can search for the people and the circumstances that bring you life and hope and courage. One of the podcasts that I did was I had to ask like 8 or 10 people, who do you know that can come on my podcast and talk about courage? I was surprised. Nobody knew anybody. There's something wrong with this picture. But the gentleman I found, in fact, I had lunch with him last week. He's 91 years old, fascinating man. And as a result of him coming on my program, it's evolved into being known as the Queen of Courage on Instagram. Now it's Sharon _Queen of Courage, but I give you all kinds of ideas, usually on a weekly basis or more often. I haven't done one yet this week, but courage to be, courage to have, courage to do. And in fact, one of my art blocks here that I use a lot is a vulnerability is the willingness to show up and be seen without any guarantee of the outcome. Now, that's hard to do when you think you're so weird, like I did. Yeah, I grew up on a farm, and they said, yeah, sometimes you're outstanding. Standing in a field. I thought, I know what that feels like, being out, standing in a field. Because, in between about 15 and 20 years old, you feel like you're different than anybody else. And it's hard to accept or hard to understand. But when you realize that you're one of a kind, your fingerprint is so unique, to be able to share that and be willing to understand that people might be waiting for you to share your uniqueness, your differentness, because the stuff that we already know isn't working. But I'll never forget seeing a lady in a wheelchair on a stage on TV. And it might have been even through a Oprah Winfrey show, but there was some, I think, guy dancing around her with this fabric of kind of a gauze, and how the gauze flowed with the music of the wind and around this girl in a wheelchair, and the beauty and the amazing movement they did. Thank goodness somebody's applauding and giving a stage for somebody in a wheelchair to express art in a totally different way.
Yeah.
Wow. And my heart just leapt with glee because somebody's willing to see her beauty and express the beauty on a grand stage. And okay, so here's this goes along with that. When you see what you're here for, you may find yourself on a stage in a play written expressly for you. There's a place for you in this world. And that's a quote by B.S. Flowers, a lady called B.S. Flowers. And I've heard, I think it's Cicely, she's a thin black lady that had that happen for her. What an amazing thing to be somebody write a play for you, exactly. And the fulfillment and delight to be able to share a story that lights you up and helps you show your best.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to encourage everybody that they don't know your past. They don't know your pain. They haven't dealt with critical voices that parents or teachers or whoever have told you. And you can still, I give you license to square your shoulder and say, I need to get around to being vulnerable enough and confident enough to be that unique, weird person that shares your uniqueness. It takes a lot of courage, and follow Queen of Courage on Instagram. You might get something that will lift you up and help you to grow. Personal growth is really important to me.
Absolutely. And even if, again, we have been conditioned to only depend on the outlook others have on us, and we forget the most important outlook is the one that we have of ourselves. There's a Nigerian proverb rather, that, says it's not what they call you, is what you answer to, right? Anybody can call you every name in the book but a child of God, right? But it's what you answer to. Are you taking this on and wearing it, either as an armor or a weapon or a poison? Or are you saying, you know what, that's your opinion, good for you, this is who I am, you stay over there. And, you have to also be careful of people who have a consistent pattern of seeing you in the negative light, and also people who have a habit of holding on to an old version of you. Appreciate that, understand who these people are, and protect yourself accordingly. It is very, very important. You don't have to wait to a ripe old age to learn that. Learn these resources, and we're going to include everything Sharon in this show notes. So for everybody who wants to follow Sharon, read her books, look at her creativity, you will have all those resources. Absolutely. SharonRolph.com. So you will have all those resources to follow. I love it. Like, share, and subscribe.
I kept forgetting to do that. I kept thinking it wasn't important, or I'll come along later.
No.
But
It's very important, because the reason why it's important is that as much as I am enjoying this conversation with you, as much as this conversation is giving me perspective, life, whatever you want to, call it, there's somebody who's going to listen to this and even get a greater message out of it than I am currently. And if they want to continue feeding their souls, feeding that spark, right, to blossom, it behooves me to not provide the resources that, they need. So please, we're going to include everything that, is Sharon related. So you can follow up with Sharon and talk to Sharon. So Sharon, just to round off our conversation, right? Um, if somebody had a question for you, like, Sharon, why did you not feel like, oh, my heydays are behind me, I shouldn't try to motivate people, I'm of, say, a boomer population, and, it's not for me to affect the world, these are, the times I just lay down in bed and rut to, infinity and beyond. Why are you doing this? How difficult was it for you to feel like you can still make an impact in the world and in the lives of people who listen to you?
Well, let me first tell you, a lot of us aren't trained as we go into retirement that we're the boss now. One of the first things I felt like, how do I know if I'm productive today? There's no boss and keep happy. Well, I have to keep myself happy. And when I wrote I made a wall hanging that I put on the wall here behind me for a while. And one day I came over and read it 3 times. And I gradually realized when I lived by what matters to me, from my core, from my true self, every day feels right. I'm doing what matters to me. I'm listening to the still small voice that's talking to me. And it is marvelous to live in alignment with your values and your heart. Do your own thinking. And it could even be called do your own truth. Now, I've heard people throw sticks at that, but maybe that God gave us a choice. What a gift that is. And to listen to what makes our heart sing and what brings us joy and happiness matters to God. I mean, how many times does scripture say that your joy may be full? I think I've heard it. That's for heaven. That's for later. No, I think it really matters to God that we are joyful here, because that helps us shine from the inside. So my last job at Boeing, I heard this myth. Somebody made a point to tell me that a lot of people put off retiring because they know they'll be dead in 3 years. Oh man, that hurt my heart, because our parents probably by the time they got to 65 felt like they had earned that couch potato, living. And there's so much more to living now than what our parents had. And to have a level of curiosity and courage, and I see all this free time in retirement as being untapped potential. And as a teenager, I thought, well, what is my potential anyway? And all this free time is potential that can be used to either teach somebody else or one of your talents, or listen to them. Do you know how many people are so hungry to feel heard and seen and understood? So don't put limitations on what you can or cannot do. I mean, like the wheelchair lady, she was dancing with music and color and beauty. But in case you need some help, on the Great Discovery platform, I have 5 or 6 offerings out there. And one of them is, what makes your heart sing? You might have forgotten. And I list 48 amazing things that may turn on the spark in your heart. Something like following the monarch butterfly migration, or putting the roundabouts in our streets, decorating them with plants and flowers that looks attractive. Or maybe you'd like to do something outrageous like touch the water in the 7 oceans. What makes your heart sing?
That is incredible because the little things in life bring us so much joy, but we get stuck in the mundane. We get stuck in, the rat race that is our modern day life, that we forget to just stop and smell the roses, right? Little things that are not so little, pottery, touching clay, photography, bird watching, whatever it is, just going out, walking in the grass barefoot, hugging a tree, something, right? What makes your heart happy? What makes your heart sing? Sometimes we forget that these are things that keep us rooted in ourselves and who we are. And it's such incredible energy and outlook when I see you take this on wholeheartedly. It's so inspiring, not only to myself but to people in retirement who may be stuck not really knowing what to do next. To see you just be incredible.
Yeah, one of my simple things that brings me joy every day is taking 4 dog biscuits with me when I go on my walk. So I get to laugh and fun. I tell the dogs, do you have kisses? I love kisses. I get my kisses from dogs.
That's cute.
Just smile and laugh,
That is cute. Doggies, they give kisses and get a biscuit. That sounds like a fun day to me. Win-win. So Sharon, there's a thing that I saw on the wall. You talked about being a boomer and reinventing yourself on your other wall. Do you have it on your computer that you can read it to us?
No, I have it on I do a loneliness to resilience
Yeah.
event every Wednesday. And it is on one of my slides
Okay.
on my for my loneliness group. But yeah, I can show that to you.
Absolutely. So this was a great conversation. Do you have anything to part with us with? Any
Yeah.
nuggets of wisdom, any knowledge, something?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I saw this on a wall at work, and it's by Thomas Wolfe.
Mm.
And I modified it slightly so it's gender neutral. But if one has a talent and fails to use it, one has failed. If one has a talent and partially uses it, one has partially failed. If one has a talent and finds somehow to use the whole of it, they have gloriously succeeded and won a satisfaction few people ever know.
So Thomas Wolfe, I need that to be my daily reminder.
Yeah. Reach for that satisfaction few people ever know. Yeah.
Yeah. That is so deep and so simple and deep at the same time. A lot of what holds us back, I can speak from a place of experience until I decided, what, enough is enough, is the external noise. And the external noise is always going to be there. It doesn't matter what you do. So whether you're good, you do good per your standard and not their standard, good per their standard and not your standard, is going to be there. It doesn't matter. So why don't I do what makes me happy at the same time, make the impact that I need to make? That realization is not an easy one to come to, but I have been on a journey in a few years and stepping out and just, like you said, letting that spark sparkle and glow into this burning flame. So here we are.
Let's go for it. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Sharon.
Stars.
Woo!
Yeah.
Here we go. I love it. Be weird, everybody. Same is lame. Pharrell Williams said this. Same is lame. Don't be like everybody else because you're uniquely you. Your own composition is not in any being, right? Just like Sharon mentioned, your fingerprints, these pads, are very unique. Nobody has another one just like you. And how dare you want to be somebody else? How dare you try to fit in a space that you don't belong? How dare you try to fit in a mold that was not cut out for you? So the noises will always be there. However, let the noise do what the noise do and fulfill your own desire, fulfill what works for you and what makes you happy and what keeps you going. So thank you, Sharon, for being here. Thank you for the knowledge. Thank you for the wisdom and encouragement. We really do appreciate you. We will include everything, Sharon, in the show notes. So whoever is willing to follow her Instagram page for your motivation, go to online, like, share, subscribe, like she said. Yes, we'll make sure everything is available in the show notes. And you can, reach out to Sharon should you want more from her. And yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Bye-bye. SharonRolph.com.
Thanks for tuning in to Unshelling Medicine Podcast. If you want to stay up to date with the latest episodes, make sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review. Follow us on social media at Altruistic Scribe on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We share additional tips, updates, and health-related content that you won't want to miss. Have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes? Reach out to us at altruisticscribeco.com. We're always eager to hear from our listeners and tackle the health topics that matter most to you. Until next time, stay healthy and take care.